Hello, parents and guardians, and welcome back to another Discipleship Debrief. My name is Pastor Dawson. In case you don't know me, I'm the youth pastor here at Community Bible Church, and I'm going to give you an update about what our students have been learning. So, last night, our youth group was in Mark chapter 8, and we did verses 22 to 26. And it's a smaller passage, but if you know the story, you probably understand why we took it so slowly, because it is the story of Jesus healing a man in Bethsaida, and he actually heals the man twice. He heals the blind man twice. First time he heals him, the blind man can't quite see, and then Jesus heals him the second time so that he can fully see. So we took this somewhat strange healing, and we broke it down. We broke it down into 3 questions. Why did Jesus heal the man in this specific way? Specifically, he took the man outside the city, and then he spit on his hands, and then he actually put his hands on the blind man's eyes. So we asked that question because we've seen throughout this series that Jesus can heal with a word. Why didn't he heal with a word? So we answered that. Then we looked at why was the man healed twice? Why was he healed in 2 different stages, right? The most unique factor of this healing, because this is the only time in Jesus's recorded ministry that someone is not healed in a single move, in a single action. They're healed twice. So we answered that as well. And then last week we talked about what is Jesus teaching through this healing. Okay, so to answer the first question, we talked about how Jesus is using specific elements to show the man his intimate knowledge of him. So he's spitting on his hand, and in that time that would have given the person more confidence because healers at that time used spit. So he's showing the man that he intends to heal. And then by touching the man's eyes, he's showing him what he intends to heal, what specifically he intends to heal, showing him that he knows what is wrong with the man. And then he does this to show that he's powerful enough to heal and that he knows enough to heal. So we talked about Jesus as the great physician, the fact that he knows you deeply and he is powerful enough to care for you. Next, as to why the man was healed twice. First, we talked about a few reasons not to believe, a few things not to believe about why he was healed twice. The first being that Jesus wasn't powerful enough, and we talked about the fact that if Jesus wanted to heal the man in one swift movement, he could have. It's actually a display of his sovereign power that he chooses to heal in different ways. Some people who claim to be healers do the exact same move and motion every single time. Jesus doesn't have to do that. He's not limited in that way. So it's not a lack of power. It's actually an expression of power. And then the second thing we said is that the man did not have side effects of his healing. He wasn't halfway healed because he'd been blind for too long and he just needed extra time to regain his sight. Again, some people now will say that as evidence of their healing being true is saying, well, they've had that infirmity for so long, it's going to take a while to go away. No, that's not the case with Jesus. When he tells you to take your bed and get up and walk, you get up and walk. So to answer the question, we looked more firmly at what Jesus is teaching, because it's not that he can't heal, and it's not that the man still has leftover side effects. It's that Jesus is deciding to do an illustration through this healing. He's illustrating something. First and foremost, he's illustrating something to the disciples. So what he's teaching the disciples is that even though they now see with partiality, right, they see halfway, they know who Jesus is, but they don't know his mission yet, and they don't know his full divinity yet. He's showing them that they will see. They'll see fully, they'll see clearly, and they'll see that soon. We're actually going to look at it next week, where Peter confesses Jesus as Christ. And then again, in a couple weeks, we're going to look at the Mount of Transfiguration, where Peter, James, and John see Jesus in his full divinity. And then we're going to look at it even further down the road when we look at his crucifixion and his resurrection, and we see the disciples getting more and more clarity throughout the gospel. So that's what he's showing them. And what he's showing us as the reader is the long-suffering of God, the fact that not all people are saved at the same time in their life in the same way. So some people are saved over years and years and years of the Holy Spirit working on them, and people evangelizing to them, and God just kind of chipping away at this person. And some people are saved in an instant, right? So we talked about Paul and how he was walking the road and he was, boom, stopped and he was saved. We talked about John the Baptist, how he was actually saved in the womb. He had the Holy Spirit before he was even born. And then we looked at the disciples, how they've been walking with Christ for multiple years, and yet they don't see with full clarity yet. So we talked about that. And I think that would be the point to hone in on this week as you go back through and you do a bit of devotional time with this. I would advise you to read 2 Peter 3, 8 and 9. And I know it's a short passage, but we had a short passage. So follow up with it with 2 Peter 3, 8 and 9. Really hone in on that idea that God is patient with people and that God works salvation in people at different speeds. Because we can begin to expect God to just open everyone's eyes with like that snap of the hand. But what God does is he waits and he's patient and he works on people. And salvation takes different amounts of time in people. So I'd read 2 Peter 3, 8 and 9, hone in on the long suffering of God, and then ask the question, how does this encourage you? How does it encourage you that God takes his time with some people? Because I think that as we hear this, and as we fully comprehend it, as we really lean into the fact that God is working on people slowly sometimes, there will be people who come to mind who are still unbelievers, who are still hard-hearted, but we've seen that slow progression with. Let that really encourage you that God works in those people, sometimes slowly. Let that encourage your student. If you have someone and you don't mind to share that. Share that testimony that I have seen God working slowly in this person's life, and I've seen God chipping away at that hardness of heart. And let that encourage them, that there are people out there that at first seem hostile, and yet God softens them, sometimes over a long time. So that is all I have for you this week. Parents, please reach out if you have any further questions on this or anything else. Otherwise, see you next week.